Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to a Salem Christmas Eve service. I'm so glad that you've chosen to make us a part of your Christmas Eve celebration, wherever you find yourself. I hope you'll settle back in a nice recliner. Maybe you've already had your Christmas Eve dinner. Just chill out for the next hour or so, as I am joined tonight by the Black Coffee Quartet. I'm so excited. Thank you guys for being here. And they're going to lead us in a little bit of music tonight. We're going to chat in just a few minutes about a couple things, but most of all, I hope that as they play and we worship together, that your spirits are filled with the joy and the love and the peace and the hope that truly can come in this season. So thanks so much for taking time out tonight to be with us. Guys, you ready to take it away?
own a holy life. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. The shepherds feared and trembled when low above the earth angels chorus that hailed our Savior's birth. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Down in a lowly manger, a humble Christ was born, and God sent us salvation that blessed Christmas morn.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for getting us kicked off tonight. Now, who started this thing off? Who's responsible? For the group, yeah.
I have no idea. Do you guys remember?
It's pretty much you. Like,
Seth
Carson actually is the responsible.
Oh, okay. He's not even here to defend himself. Seth, if you hear us tonight, Becky, if you're watching, just get Seth on. We'll figure out. But so all of you guys are coming at this as jazz musicians. What is it that intrigues you about jazz? Why do you come to the table and start in this life playing jazz music to begin with? Where'd that come from for each of you?
Who wants to jump on that first?
I gave you time to think about this. I did. I gave them time. This isn't just like random stuff. It's not.
I'll do the old guy thing. So
Okay.
for most of you who don't know, I'm actually a trombone player, and this is what I do with this group. But jazz-wise, it's always been something that was different from everything I learned. I and pretty much everyone else in this group are all trained musicians, and outside of our learning, we get so much.
Okay, kind of expand out, yeah. Any other takers you guys think about?
I'm a little opposite. I started out playing by ear and never thought that I would go in the direction of jazz, but soon realized that if you wanted to create and play by ear, then jazz is the way to study in college. I wasn't bound to just scales and all that kind of thing in rehearsal. You really get to improvise. Now, I'm not saying that stuff's not important, because a lot of classically trained musicians make great jazz musicians, and vice versa. But for me, it was the creative aspect, because I've always played by ear from a young age. So it allowed me to not only learn to read music and to use music, but I could create within that context.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things I love to watch about you guys. Like, a few times I've seen you, it's kind of like you get together and you're like, what are we doing? You know? Like, you don't see that, like, in a whole lot of other spaces, you know? Like, everybody comes, we've got an order of service, we do this, but it's like, when you come together, there's sort of creation in the moment, which is pretty cool. You guys, how about y'all? You got any thoughts about why jazz? What intrigued you?
I was a lot like Justin, because I used to get in trouble in like middle school band class for like making up melodies that weren't on the page. Like, we were playing band music, and I was like trying to come up with something cooler, and that was always something that I was getting fussed at for. And then I got a little bit older and got into high school and realized that like jazz was an avenue where you're supposed to do that. And that's like the thing that makes it cool and makes it awesome, is trying to figure out what you can come up with to kind of remix the melody and stuff. So as soon as I kind of figured out that like kind of improvisatory creativity is what jazz is about, and like what it grew out of, then that was immediately something that like just spoke to me on a deep level from the first time that so it took forever like to really actually start learning it, but it was something that kind of felt like it found me instead of me finding it. It was like I was ready for it the moment that I discovered what it was. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Chris, you lead worship, so do you feel like you get locked in sometimes?
Oh, dude, yeah. 100%. I do feel like I get locked in. But I'll echo everything these guys said, too, just because, there's just a huge amount of freedom in it, which is the really interesting thing about it. I mean, the best takes we normally have is the stuff we never even thought about doing before we did it. Like, I don't think we've ever played the tune Blue Monk the same way twice. Just anything. Like, and it's just so simple. It's just a blues tune, right? But there's just a ton of freedom in it, a ton of stuff to work around, and it's just,
Yeah, that's cool. Well, we're going to give you guys just a little bit of a break, and I'm going to bring Alyssa up to play a couple of tunes with Justin. If you're a part of the Salem family, you know her. She's one of our own students. But she's gonna get a little bit more traditional with us. We're gonna play a couple of Christmas carols with her, and we'll be back with these guys in just a few minutes. Awesome. Tell me the name of that tune again. What was that one?
A child is born.
A Child is Born. That's pretty amazing. So you guys played a long time. Ever made any mistakes in the middle of a set?
Yeah, like several times.
Several- So I was intrigued here recently, and I know I shared this with a couple of you guys, and we're going to watch a piece of it here in a minute. I'm going to share it with you guys at home too. Stefan Harris came out with a TED Talk a while back, and he says something in there about mistakes and opportunities. In fact, let's just watch it real quick together, and then I want to come back in a minute and we'll talk about it. So we're going to watch it here. I'm going to let you guys watch it at home for just a minute. It's just a few minutes. Don't freak out. We'll be back in a minute. But let's check out this clip by Stefan Harris real quick. All right.
So the bandstand, as we call it, this is an incredible space. It is really a sacred space. And one of the things that is really sacred about it is that you have no opportunity to think about the future or the past. You really are alive right here in this moment. There are so many decisions being made when you walk on the bandstand. We had no idea what key we were going to play in. In the middle, we sort of made our way into a song called TT Boom, but that could have happened, maybe not. Everyone's listening, we're responding. You have no time for projected ideas, right? So the idea of a mistake, from the perspective of a jazz musician, it's easier to talk about someone else's mistake. The way I perceive a mistake when I'm on the bandstand, first of all, we don't really see it as a mistake. The only mistake lies in that I'm not able to perceive what it is that someone else did. Every mistake is an opportunity in jazz. So if something, it's hard to even describe what a funny note would be. So for example, if I played a color like we were playing in a palette that sounded like this. So if Christian played a note like playing F, See, these are all right inside of the color palette if you played an E. See, these all lie right inside of this general emotional palette that we were painting. If he played an F sharp, though, to most people's ear, they would perceive that as a mistake. So I'm going to show you, we're going to play just for a second, and we're going to play on this palette, and at some point, Christian will introduce this note. And we won't react to it. He'll introduce it for a second, and then I'll stop. I'll talk for a second. Ready? Well, no. Let's see what happens when we play with this palette. So someone could conceptually perceive that as a mistake. And the only way that I would say it was a mistake is in that we didn't react to it. It was an opportunity that was missed. So it's unpredictable. We'll paint this palette again. He'll play it. I don't know how we'll react to it, but something will change. We'll all accept his ideas or not. So you see, he played this note. I ended up creating a melody out of it. The texture changed in the drums this time. He got a little bit more rhythmic, a little bit more intense in response to the way that I responded to it. So there is no mistake. The only mistake is if I'm not aware, if each individual musician is not aware and accepting enough of his fellow band member to incorporate the idea, and if we don't allow for creativity. So Jazz, this bandstand is absolutely amazing. It's a very purifying experience, and I know I speak for all of us when I tell you that we don't take it for granted. We know to be able to come on the bandstand and play music is a blessing.
All right. So I know what I want to say about that, or what hit me, but I'd be curious as to what stuck out to you guys. And if you want to put something in the chat feed, feel free to do that as well, wherever you are at home. But what kind of stuck out to you guys from Stefan Harris's little explanation of what takes place on the bandstand and it being sacred and all that?
Towards the end, where he said they don't take their playing time for granted, actually really stuck out to me with 2020 being the year that it was.
Yeah.
We always play for a long time we've been playing for the carriage rides in downtown Forest City, and we didn't do this, this year, and last year when we were playing, and it's not a fault of, if we get to next year, it's more like we get to, and that thought was right. You can't take that for granted.
Yeah.
When we play in those moments, sometimes magical things happen, sometimes mistakes happen, but every time we play, I made me think, I should really start to really appreciate every moment and not take those for granted, not just when we play, but how we play. So I kind of thought about that.
Yeah, it was a unique thing for me to hear, not being a musician at all, like wishing I could be, but to hear the sacredness of sort of this space. I mean, I don't know, I guess that hits you guys in a different way than it hits me probably, but what else stuck out to y'all? I think.
I think the thing that stuck out to me the most was I think he was talking about how the only mistake would be to not perceive what everybody else was doing on the bandstand. So it's like the only real mistake that could be made in that context, in the context of improvising together, would be to not be paying attention, to go to sleep basically. And that kind of like, that was a real point where I kind of feel like that kind of relates to life in general. It's just like, the times in my life when I felt the worst, I guess, or felt like I was not on my game as a person was always the time when I wasn't paying attention to the people around me. And, not being mindful of people around me and how they feel and what they think and not engaging with other people. And then the flip side of that is like the times when I feel the best is always when I feel like I am connected to other people and am paying attention to what other people need from me and paying attention to how my behavior affects them. So that really branches out into life for me, how like the best music is made when you're really in tune with the people around you, and like the best, me at my best as a person, I feel like is when I'm looking out for other people and paying attention to other people and what they need and the feedback they're giving me. So if you pay attention to other people, they're always giving you, just like when we're playing, if I throw something out there, they're immediately going to respond, and I'm going to get some feedback on them about what I'm doing, and that's going to affect what I do next. Well, it's the same, out on the street. It's like the people that are around you are always giving you feedback and always giving you information about how you could be a better person and how you could have better relationships with them. And so, but the key to that is that you have to wake up and pay attention.
Yeah,
So
you have to listen to it. Yeah,
that was
yeah,
that was it.
yeah. That's good. You guys have anything to follow up on that?
I mean, of course, I totally agree. I like how at the end he started calling mistakes ideas. Like we have to be accepting of our friends' ideas when they're playing, and just kind of expand upon that. A mistake can be an idea. I mean, it's how we view the mistake that. Because you can take a mistake and turn it into something magical like they did. And that's what we do all the time. Just like Kevin said, we're paying attention to each other all the time. If he's going to play something, I'm going to kind of try to play something that follows what he does and kind of expand upon it. And I mean, Cornelius does the same thing. We all just kind of play off of each other. And that's kind of how we have to live our lives. We have to accept the mistakes or the ideas of others and use them as either examples or ways to live our life in a better way. So.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I won't be the only loser that doesn't talk.
You could do
I
it.
guess,
You could
so.
just say, "Hey, let's play another song."
Hey, let's play it. No, I thought I'll piggyback on what Justin and Kevin kind of said, because the one thing that was brought up in that video and that always is interesting to me about jazz is that whole act of listening in general and the way we listen to each other and how we didn't start off this fine ensemble that we were today, right? I mean, I don't want to even hear any recordings of us from when we started, what, was it been 7, 8 years ago?
7, 8 years. I've got those, by the way.
Yeah, okay,
Nice,
yeah, I don't
nice.
want them.
You pull them out every now and then just to see what's going on.
Look back, and I'm a lot more
Yeah.
comfortable in my own skin. I'll take a look. But that whole idea of listening, when this active listening that we are cultivating is the thing we are participating in, but it's also this thing that is like connecting us and bringing us more into. Like I can like see, I can kind of tell what you're going to do sometimes, right? And same thing with you, and especially us, because the drums and the bass have this really good connection in a jazz group. Like we're supposed to be, and sometimes we do better at that than others. But I can tell, I can usually. It's almost like I can tell where you're going with something before it even happens. And I know you said the same thing about me before, but that didn't just start that way. That we had to practice that. We had to live into that. We had to learn how to do that. And if that doesn't translate into real world, I don't even know.
Yeah, no, that's
What
true.
does, right?
That's absolutely true. Yeah, and
Next tune. No, I'm just kidding.
next tune and go. So our reading for tonight, is Luke chapter 2. Now, I don't know about your home and your family traditions, but I remember growing up every Christmas, we would always begin Christmas morning with this passage right here in Luke chapter 2. It says in verse 1, "In those days a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration and was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And all went to their own towns to be registered. And Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to the city of David, which was called Bethlehem, because he was a descendant from the house and the family of David. Now he went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was engaged, and who was expecting a child. And while they were there, the time came for her to deliver her child. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in bands of cloths, and then laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn." Now, I don't know if you've been like me this year, but there have been a lot of opportunities over the past year for me to say, no, there must be some mistake. Right? I had this happen to me just a few months ago when I got into an auto accident and I called in and I was reporting my claim, and they said to me very quickly, "No, I'm sorry, sir, you don't have any collision insurance." And the first thing out of my mouth was, no, there must be some mistake. That can't be true. I've been paying for it. And I remember back in March when we discovered that we were going to have to be on lockdown in the state of North Carolina, and the governor said, "You're going to be here for a month." And I immediately said, no, there must be some mistake. Like, that's not right. That can't be true, that there's this mistake, that there's got to be this mistake that you would assume that I'm going to be locked up in my house for 30 days. Little did I know that now, in December, I would still be in some sort of lockdown and shutdown. There's been these moments all throughout the year where we've seen tragic things in different cities around the nation, and as we watch the news footage, that phrase comes to mind. Must be some mistake. Even some of you, in the past month or two, whenever we saw the election results come in, no matter what side you fell on, you're probably like, no, there must be some mistake in this. In fact, I still think many of us may be saying that same thing. There must be some mistake in what's going on. And I've thought about that phrase, particularly in light of what Stefan Harris had said with regard to the bandstand, that there are no mistakes on the bandstand, only opportunities. And I think about that in relation to this reading here in Luke chapter 2, verse 5, because Luke ends that passage after telling us all this transition that Joseph and Mary make, and telling us the way that Mary is expecting a child, and telling us the proper way that Joseph is trying to follow the census. They arrive in the city. Mary delivers Jesus. She wraps her baby in fine cloths. And then at the very end of that passage, we get the mistake. They laid him in a manger because there was no room in the inn. And you're like, whoa, there must be some mistake. I mean, I can imagine Joseph in that moment going, no. I made reservations months ago. There must be some mistake. I need to be here. And Mary's off to the side going, I don't even know why I came on this trip. This was a mistake for me to be here in this moment. There's got to be a mistake as to why I'm here and what I'm going through. But just as Stefan Harris reminded us, every mistake is really an opportunity. You know, over the last month, we've been talking about all the random activity that's taking place in our life, all the random things that come at us, and we've been talking about this random Christmas. And I imagine that 2020 has felt like a lot of random things being thrown at you. And along the way, I'm sure there are many pieces of that puzzle that seem like a mistake. But today, I want to challenge us. I want to challenge us not to see those as mistakes, missteps, misguided notions and parts of our lives, but rather to see them as opportunities for something that God wants to birth in us and through us. You know, it's interesting to me that Luke ends that particular part of his story by telling us that Mary and Joseph delivered this child, wrapped him in swaddling clothes, laid him in a manger, because there was no room in the inn. There's obviously some sort of mistake. But then very quickly changes scene to a group of shepherds on a hillside somewhere just outside the city. You see, on that night, this group of shepherds, this poor, disenfranchised, marginalized group of shepherds, are waiting on their sheep when they see a group of angels who have come to them to announce in great song and exuberation the arrival of the Christ child, and offers them the first invitation to go and kneel at his feet. At the same time that Mary and Joseph thought there was a mistake in their life, a new opportunity was being born for the shepherds, and God had birthed this child in the very place that those shepherds felt most comfortable with, in the very place that they could call sort of home or their second home. He'd placed them in this manger where shepherds would come by time and time again, and in this moment where Mary and Joseph perhaps thought that they had birthed a mistake, they had found themselves in a mistake, God had created an opportunity to share his son with the least of these, to share his son with those who they thought, who society had pushed to the margins, to share his son with a group of people who felt completely isolated and alone, to share his son in even the darkest of places. And tonight, as you're looking, maybe holding on to the mistakes that are in your hand, I want you to start imagining the way that God would want to use those as an opportunity. In what way is God wanting to challenge you, push you, encourage you to see all of the pieces of 2020, to pull them together in front of you in all those places in your life where you'd be like, this is just a mistake. Start to see the way that God is wanting to birth an opportunity, not only for you, but for those around you who are hurting and lost, for those around you in your life who need you and who need you to share a bit of the light of Christ. You know, that's why on occasions like this, we light so many candles. We light candles during this season because in a season in the world where the days are the shortest they will be in the entire year, we remember this, that light has been born. And even though the world around us is dark, and even though it seems to be full of mistakes, there's a new opportunity that's been born. There's a new light that's coming. And every day forward, for the rest of this year, the light will grow. And it will grow, and it will grow, and the days will get longer and longer, and we will realize and recognize the same way that our days get longer, that our life is getting brighter with the presence of Christ in it. And so if you're at home tonight, and you've got a candle, and you can improvise. I don't care. Get a piece of paper, roll it up. We're all about improvisation tonight. Roll it up, find a burner in your stove. Just don't burn your house down. But we're going to light a candle tonight. And as I light this central Christ candle, we'll remember, once again, the gifts that this Christ child brings. One of my favorite songs, and the guys are going to sing us out with this song tonight, is Silent Night. There's something beautiful about music, but there's also a beauty that comes in the midst of silence. And as you get your candles together, you grab whatever you can to light with your family. I know we often do this in the context of a church with the lights going out and the light being passed throughout the church. I believe even where you are, you can create that sort of special moment with God. That special moment where you remember that even in the darkness of your home, your community, and your neighborhood, there's a light that has come. That light is the Christ child. And that Christ child comes to bring us hope when there is despair. And the Christ child comes to bring peace to our world where there is turmoil. The Christ child comes to bring joy where there is sadness and grief. And he comes to bring love where there is hatred all around. And so tonight, wherever you find yourself, allow that light to fill your hearts And on this silent night, let God's love reign supreme in your life.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, Son of God, love's pure light, radiant beams from thy holy face, with the dawn of redeeming grace. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth.
Thank you, guys. I hope you hear the gigantic roar of applause here this evening. And thank you all for joining us tonight on this very special virtual Christmas Eve service. I hope that your night has already been filled with all the blessings and joy of Christmas. And I want to encourage you, as we get ready to go off air, why don't you take just a moment of silence in your home? I know. Thank you so much for thumbing through Facebook and being a part of our, Christmas service tonight. But now I'm going to ask you, shut it down, shut down YouTube, shut down the electronics for a few minutes, and just rest in the silence and the peace of this night, and allow that to speak to your heart for the next few minutes. As you go forth with all the blessings of Christmas. May God's peace, the hope of Christ, the love of our Father, and the peace that passes all understanding surround you now and always through Christ our Lord. Merry Christmas. Have a great night. Merry Christmas, y'all.
Merry Christmas.